This Muay Thai Library session is with Samransak Muangsurin. The Muangsurin gym was very well known for their fighters having incredibly heavy hands. They also had a number of fighters who went on to do Western boxing and were very successful in that avenue as well. Samransak is just an incredible, heavy-handed, punching Muay Mat fighter. He was two-time Lumpini champion. He actually shows us his two belts at the end of this session. I was very excited to go train with him. I watched a couple of his fights on YouTube prior to this and was just totally stoked on his encroaching, powerful style. And you can really see that in what he's teaching me here in this Muay Thai Library session. So if you are a puncher, if you're Muay Mat, you're definitely going to love this session. And he's really great at breaking down some of the more basic elements and basic techniques of Muay Thai, which is really good both for beginners and for advanced fighters. Everything is basics, and I'm excited about this one. So enjoy Samransak Muangsurin. If this gym looks familiar, that's because this is Chai Sasakun's gym in Bangkok, and this is Samransak Muangsurin. He's showing me here some basic footwork for just how to close in as a puncher. So the front leg and the jab come together, but he's telling me to look down my arm the way you would like look down a pool cue or like the barrel of a gun. Look at the angle of his punch and how he like rolls his knuckles down. He's not a huge dude, but he's got some reach on those punches because of the technique that he uses. He told me to keep my hands in fists. I tend to keep my hands relaxed. I've been told to keep them relaxed all the time, and I've been told to kind of make a fist and kind of flex it, squeeze it at the very end. He says just keep it in a fist all the time, and he has a little bit of a roll on the end of it, but here he's trying to get me to get some rhythm in my movements. Oh, his back is incredible. If you go watch his fights on YouTube, the times that his back is directly to the camera when he was a young man fighting at Lumpini, he just like suddenly takes up the entire width of the screen. He had such power in his back. He told me to stand behind him here actually so that I could see how his shoulders and arms move for his punches. See how kind of like level his torso stays? He does rotate back and forth for his power, but everything is driving through like his hips and shoulders. So he's saying you just take little steps forward. Everything is just little incremental. You're not like leaping forward at any point. But look at how he steps with that jab, and then watch his back foot as the cross comes. He's so relaxed. He tells me about 1 million times in this entire session to relax. And I know what he means, but it's actually really difficult for me. I'm not used to a lot of these kind of movements and pivots and things, and I'm trying to have like structure in my shoulders. To be able to like put power in your shoulders and relax them is something that takes years of experience and expertise, and you can see it in fighters. So he's having me go back and forth, but he wants me to have my turnaround at the ropes be the way you would pivot off of an opponent. He yelled at me he told me not to look at the floor. He said, Mong Kudofu, which means like look at the opponent. He wanted my eyes focused forward as I was coming forward, not staring at the ground. He wants me to feel the rhythm. See his like 1-2 of the jab cross? He wants to feel the rhythm in that, not only in your feet, but overall in your body. You can see huge differences between how he does it and how I do it, and it's not necessarily a technical difference. It's a difference of like composure and ease, and that's where the technique makes a big difference. Is like once you get the technique down and you just kind of like wear those grooves in, then you can really relax into it, and the power comes even though you're not using any power yourself. He's making a correction here of my feet. So he wants my front foot facing completely forward. Mine angles off a little bit to the outside. I'm like bow-legged. He wants my front foot completely forward, and then he wanted my back foot not as much pointed out. And I had my hands up really high as a Muay Thai fighter, and he had me drop them down a little bit. One, to relax, but two, because he's thinking of like punching from his cheekbones, basically. He wanted me to come right up on him. So when you get your opponent on the rope, he wanted me to feel that like a shark smelling blood in the water and closing in on someone who has nowhere to go. Like come all the way to the edge. See how he puts himself in the ropes to have me close in on him and then pivot off. So now he's adding the hook. We've just been doing 1-2, and he wants that left hook. Look at his front leg. He turns pretty hard, but what's beautiful is that his knee, his hip, and his shoulder are all one piece that carry the power of his arm. So there's a lot of power in his hook, but it's the entire side, his entire left side moves as one piece. Oh. It even has a little bit of a downward angle to it. I've been told by a lot of people that my hook is too close. You hook yourself. So he wanted me to make the arm a single piece and not move it towards myself. And he wants me to bring it back. That's what he's saying right there, is that not only do you like throw the power for the punch, but you need to snap back as well. So like your body is constantly coiling and springing. He wants me to reach all the way to the ropes. Look at his head and body, and then how his punches just kind of roll around it. You can see actually where he's looking on my body to see whether I have the power coming or not. He's looking at my back leg for when I throw that cross. Watch his leg. He completely comes up on the ball of his foot when he's throwing that cross, but he pins it to the ground. He doesn't drag it with him. This is also something that Sagat, who has really powerful punches, made a point about, is you pin that back leg to the floor. You don't drag it behind you. Yao bai means that's too long. He wants me to like throw my whole body instead of like reaching for it. See the extension he gets on that cross. It's like it reaches its point and then he's got like 4 more inches because of that back foot. So you want the power in the punch, you want it to come out really fast, but you also want to be able to snap it back, which I think for me is why I put tension in my arms, is that I'm like saving some for the way back, but you really want to have looseness in the arm in order to throw it and then just be able to snap it back through the opposite shoulder coming. He's adding the uppercut now. I liked his uppercut a lot. He paid a lot of attention to how it's driven through the hip, like it comes from the leg. Yok na noi means like rock forward a little bit on the uppercut. See how he has a sharpness to it? It's like pop to its target. He doesn't really go through the target because he's snapping back. Oh, that would hurt though. So he's different from Sagat in that Sagat's got that like tiger uppercut, which is really, really long. If you watch his session in the Muay Thai Library, there are a few of them, and he works with me on the tiger uppercut, which is really long. Samransak is one of the first trainers who has told me not to reach so far with the uppercut, which for me, I'm short, actually felt really good. Like I could feel where exactly his range was coming under the chin of someone when you're standing in front of them. I could feel how that was being driven up through the knee and the hip. That one felt a little snappy. I like that. He's saying everything comes from the hips. He's like, you need to move your torso. This is something that is true for every trainer. They all understand how it comes from the hips. But people who really talk about this a lot are Chai Sasakun, whose gym we're in right now. He's in the Muay Thai Library, as well as General Tanwakom, who is the master of Muay Lert Rit and the Muay Karat style. He talks a lot about how everything comes from this twist of the body. So if you want to focus on that element, which is what Samransak's talking about there, those are 2 good sessions to review as well. So we're doing a little bit of mitt work here. You can see how he's having me throw punches, but everything he's actually doing is coming from his feet. He never actually has me focus on his feet or on my feet, but in watching this, I can see how everything he's telling me to do with my punches is actually coming from his feet. He wants that rotation in the fist, so it kind of rolls down on your front 2 knuckles as you're making contact. And then I'm wearing gloves now, so you can't see, but he had made the correction before when I was just shadow boxing that he wants that like squeeze in the fist. So in your glove, you want to squeeze the fist as you're making impact. Oh, his cross is so long. Look at his right shoulder as he does this. You can see how it like crosses the center line of his body even on the twist. It's so good. So he's telling me that he's going to focus a lot on punches because in his style of fighting and in his camp, the Muangsurin gym, everything was punching. Like you just knocked the shit out of your opponent with punches, and then you had other weapons that could kind of follow up on them or like help with your rhythm. But for him as a Muay Mat fighter, the focus on punching is that's how you intimidate and move and control your opponent throughout the fight. So I was pivoting in kind of an incomplete way. So he's showing me here the footwork that he wants to get out of me, which is basically like a 4-point turn all the time, where you're following your opponent and you're cutting off the ring, but you're constantly in front of them. Like I overstepped where I was supposed to go there. So when he pivots, he wants me to be facing that poster on the back wall. So it's basically like on a compass reading, you want to be like due northeast, south, and west when you're like following your opponent. Oh, look how long his jab is too. My arm is never extended. He's covering a lot of distance and he's like getting a lot of power right on the end of it. Yao bai means like go ahead and be long, like punch really long. See, I was trying to get me to follow him. Like, this is what I'm talking about how the importance is actually in the footwork. Even though he's not focusing on the technique of the footwork is what allows any of the technique that he's making specifications for in the hands actually work. Right there was a little bit odd. For my hook, he gave me like a coffee cup hand, which is not actually how he hooks. So the correction he was trying to make by making my arm go like this was actually the position of my arm rather than the position of my fist. He wants the hook to be one piece, and so he turned my hand sideways to make it a bar, but he doesn't actually have his thumb up on his hook. Here he's making the point about how the whole front side of your body is one piece, and it just flips like a spring that gets to, it's been loaded and it gets to unleash. That's what the hook is as it comes around, all as one piece from the front. He wants those punches really fast. The speed of them actually comes from the looseness. There's accuracy, like it's not wobbly, but you can't have tension in your arm or it's going to be slow. He's saying if you try to punch 100%, you're never going to hit anything. So you kind of have to have a relaxed kind of like 70% power, and then that's enough power to knock someone out, but you don't want to have the tension of trying to go 100% because that's what's going to slow down your punches and actually make them really readable. Look at the looseness in the various parts of his body when he does this shadow. You can see the looseness in his shoulders, but the complete accuracy on the ends of his punches. Like he's hitting the same spot over and over again. This is funny because I'm standing far away from him, but I'm still not even extending my arms entirely to reach him, which means that I'm like stuffing my own punches. He actually stands close and gets full extension on all of his punches like that, which ends up going through the target. Oh, so powerful. Look at how long that jab is. And look at his feet. See how he doesn't turn his front foot at all, but he's got a little bit of a pivot on the back foot. So he keeps telling me you don't have to go 100%. He can feel that I'm like using power or I'm like trying to hit really hard. As the pad man, you should never be feeling how hard someone's trying to punch. You should just feel how hard it is, which comes out of the relaxation. So he's going to say this a lot to me because I was pretty tense. You can even see the relaxation in his shoulders right now as he's holding the pads. It's like designation of tension rather than an overall tension. This is true for every element of Muay Thai. Oh, look at that uppercut. See how he like digs it? And look at his back foot, how like the back foot drives power. So he's like, you take a step forward and then the backhand uppercut follows. So he's showing me how the guard of the front hand comes up at the same time as the uppercut. You don't step in with your hand like super guarded by your face because that's a tension that you don't need, but it comes into position at the same time that that uppercut is coming into position. It's like what the offhand does on a kick. Oh. See how it was kind of loose up until that moment? It was relaxed. That was a little wonky. And he's got this like, you turn your fingers in towards yourself. It's like you're looking at your nails at the last second as the uppercut's coming. He's asking me when I'm going back to Pattaya. Stop to ask. It's possible he was thinking about showing me another thing another day or something. So he's saying don't forget to pivot that front foot on that hook. Like he can feel that my body is not coming all together as one piece because I'm neglecting the pivot on my front foot. If I leave my foot still the way he just did, you're punching just with your arm. When you pivot your foot like this, you're bringing the entire left side of your body or right side, depending on what's the front side of your body on that hook. He wants the rhythm. In Thai, if you have a trainer who's telling you yoke, 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 they're talking about like swaying or rhythm. Yoke, yoke, it's like swaying or rocking. Really, it's just keeping your feet alive. It doesn't matter whether you're doing like a rocking back and forth or side to side. The yoke, yoke is really just like feeling the balance in your weight, not being all on one foot all the time. That was a nice pivot there. Soy, soy. He says it's good. He says beautiful. So you can see how short that cross is because I'm not doing with my back foot what he does. My back foot is actually pointed out much wider than it needs to be, which means the amount of distance I need to pivot it in order to just get it straight cuts off distance of my own right cross. His right cross is so long because when his foot turns, it's adding 4 inches. Mine's adding 4 inches too, but it's adding from 4 inches behind. This is the same thing Sagat says in our sessions. If you go back and watch the Sagat sessions in the Muay Thai Library, he's always making fun of me for starting from way too far away. He's like, don't go back to America first and then throw your body. You want everything to come from where it's already at. So like you keep your elbow tucked into your body and it comes from there. That's what Samransak is talking about with that cross, is that you don't want to be coming from a deficit. You want to be coming from a good distance, and then you have an extension because of the pivot. He's saying you're giving your opponent time to go home. He reminded me of Master K right there, my first trainer, when he was throwing his hands down like that. He punches down. So much power when you punch down like that. He's asking me if I've ever fought before. Yeah, a few. Looking at the scars on my face. It's amazing to me. This is what's so beautiful about these sessions where you get like super basics, is that there's nothing boring about basics, because the beauty of them is making them really consistent. Being consistent in something takes an incredible amount of time and work and repetition. So every single time he throws his punches, they're the same, like they're the same groove, and they have kind of like a rhythm to themselves. It's like how you can make an entire poem out of like 2 words. He can fight an entire round out of like a jab and a cross out of different combinations. And it's in this like extension and rotation of his footwork and the rotation of his body and the looseness in his shoulders. All of those things are really hard to piece together. Even if you get one of them right, getting all of them together, all of them working together, is what makes these incredibly powerful punchers who like move with ease. My inability to do it is less embarrassing to me and more a testament to how hard it is to do basics well. So I really appreciate that he works so diligently on each of these small pieces, because they make a big difference. Oh man, that extension in his shoulder on that right cross. And watch his feet, watch his back foot. This was something that was kind of revelatory to me. Sometimes you'll realize something in something you've been doing for a really long time that just never made sense to you. This happened with Crew Man Up. If you go back and watch his first session in the Muay Thai Library, he teaches me that when you come off of a kick, put the heel of your standing foot down first, and then the kicking foot comes, and your balance is totally on. If you do it in the opposite order, you have no balance. What Samransak just showed me should be really obvious, and to some people is really obvious, and some people just do it automatically without realizing it. But when you're throwing your cross, you have to step with your front foot first, which you would be doing if you were throwing a jab anyway. But if you're only throwing your back arm, I don't step and then have the cross come. It's this like slight delay in the movement, putting things in proper order, that brings all the pieces together in proper form and timing. So for me, if you're like me and you don't realize this consciously, stepping and then throwing the cross as like a 1-2 makes a big difference. So my hook actually comes out pretty nice when I kind of feel that whole rotation. If I throw it by itself, I often forget to rotate the foot, but if it comes on the end of a combination, I have a pretty good rotation. I think because the right cross forces my shoulder back, and so bringing it back the other way feels very natural. Oh, look at his uppercut. See how it comes from his knee first? He like bends his back knee forward first, and then everything comes up. Oh, it's almost 2 movements, but it's not. It's like, it's a single movement with 2 beats in it. It's really pretty. Oh. When he first moves, when the knee comes down, the first beat, you're kind of like, huh, I wonder what punch that's going to be. It's just like all up under your chin and you're done. Oh, see how he leans his weight too? He's just slightly offline, so he's like slightly offline if the opponent is punching him at the same time, but he's not leaning. Like he's not outside the line. Like he's not blowing out his own line, but he's got this like little lean to the side that's really nice. So he's saying that elbows come off really nice from punches because it's the same weight transfer on your feet. So you basically set up elbows with punches because they're two distances with the same movements. So that elbow should be exactly the same as my cross, but just closer. Here he's making this correction on my back foot. See where he pointed his back foot? That's what he thinks I'm doing. And so this cuts off range. I'm already short. He's not a tall guy. He fought people who are taller than him all the time. So he understands these little tiny things that make a difference in the kind of range you're going to be able to have. If my foot is totally sideways like that, it's actually making me shorter. Whereas if I keep it at kind of like a 45-degree angle, I get more extension as my weight is coming forward on these punches. It makes me longer. So you can see with that left elbow how the step forward is the same as the step forward on a jab. You're basically coming straight into your opponent's stance. See how he even throws a little bit of a fake jab first and then the right comes after it? It's the same as a 1-2, but instead of a cross, it's your elbow because you've shortened that distance. So putting punches and elbows together is really nice in terms of as you're eating distance closing in on your opponent, they just kind of flow together as you're getting closer. If your opponent backs up, just stay with the punches because your distance is staying the same. But if they stop, like if you stun them with something and you've closed the distance and you're a little bit too close for a punch, an elbow is just right there with perfect power. Oh, look at the elbows being tucked in. They're not touching his ribs, but they're kind of like stuck in a little bit. I'm asking him how the hook comes around. Like, does it go behind someone's guard, or do you just go ahead and hit their guard? And he says it depends on the distance you have between you and the opponent. He's like, if they're coming towards you, when you throw that hook, it's going to go behind their guard. But if they're farther away from you, or if they're punching, you can actually hook over that punch. Mat in Thai is a punch. It actually means like a fist, but like mat. So he's saying mat hook means like a hook punch. Oh, he's showing here how to block with your like tucking your elbow up. So you basically just close off. If you keep your guard like in an 11 guard, someone can hook behind it. But if you like kind of throw your hand back and create the tight elbow, they can't get through. This is Chat Chai, who owns the gym. He's WBC champion, and his dog Lucky. I love Lucky, and Chat Chai had been talking about how he was going to take him swimming. And then he went and got him and brought him to the gym to say hi to me and to let Samransak know that they were going swimming. So it's just stopping by with Lucky, who I love. Chat Chai spends a lot of time making his dog happy. It's very sweet. He loves that dog a lot. I'm telling Samransak that dog weighs more than both of us. He's like a 50-something kilo dog. I love him. So he's putting the Muay Thai pads on. It's very sweet. He said at this point, as he was putting them on, he's like, I have not held pads in a long, long time. He told me that he's been a trainer for a really long time, but he was never, or was not for a long time, at a particular gym. People would call him, and he would go hold for people. So he was kind of like someone that they would call in either as a personal trainer, private trainer, or as an expert. But he hadn't held pads in a while, and His shyness about it was totally unwarranted. So he's telling me to turn my hip more on my kick. He wants lightness on my feet. Again, he's reminding me of my first trainer, Master K, and his like demonstrating with his body this kind of like lightness that he wants. So this I liked too. I know that I lean back too much on my kicks. He's telling me to goom. Goom means to like hunch or kind of crouch. So he's telling me to bring my head down, like tuck my chin and keep my head forward as I'm throwing my kick. Obviously, this is a correction from me going backwards. Like if you already keep your chin tucked, you don't need to like curl into your kick. But the ultimate form that he wants is this like forward moving, like chin always tucked kick. If you watch his fights on YouTube, he has this incredible like, holy shit, just keep those hands off of me punching style, and then a right kick will just come out of nowhere, usually very high, like kind of head kick. But he had a nice right kick that would just come out of his punches. And so keeping his body and his chin tucked in the same form as his punches, you can see how these kind of like flow together. So he's trying to get the rhythm of the like punching and kicking kind of flowing together. I'm describing to him what I saw in his fights. He's saying at my camp, he's like, we just punch all the time and then there are a couple of kicks thrown in. He's like, our pad men didn't hold for a lot of kicks. So I'm like, how come everyone at Muangsurin gym, which is his gym in Bangkok, I'm like, how come everyone had heavy hands? Wang Chinoy, Mr. 33-second knockout, never fought with the Muangsurin name, but he went and trained at that camp. He had heavy hands. What Samransak is telling me is that the head of the gym liked punchers, and so that's what they focused on at the gym. He's asking me where I'm from, like what country I'm from. What state? From Colorado. I think he's actually just trying to take a little break. He's trying to get a little bit of a breather. He's an awesome trainer, and he's actually in incredibly good shape. He's like 61, I think. Still so strong. But he hasn't trained anyone in a while. But you can see how he like picks up on all these little details. He's feeling his own rhythm as I stand in front of him. He's like trying to kind of pull it out of me. He's got this kind of rocking knee that reminds me a little bit of Karahat's, how there's got this kind of like almost a hinge on it that extends out. He's trying to get me to understand the Thai, they call it jangwa, which is like the timing of a knee. Like put it in the rhythm of your overall rhythm and how it just kind of comes out unexpectedly. It's basically like a surprise punch that submarines under someone's awareness. And he made this correction to my footwork coming off of the knee. So if you watch what I'm doing, when I throw my front knee, my leg just comes straight down from where I just kneed. It just lands. He doesn't like that. You bring it back behind you the same way you would if you were throwing a back knee. You bring it behind you and then you return to your natural stance. So it's like a longer step back. This takes you out of range as you're coming off of it. I don't love stepping out of range because it's so hard for me to get in the first place. But what I like about what he's teaching me right here and what makes sense is that if you just bring your foot right down where it was after the knee, you're not on balance, like you're not ready to do anything else, and you're actually susceptible. If someone throws something right back at you, you're in trouble. I've seen this in fighters at my gym being yelled at by Diesel Noi. They throw their left knee and then they put their legs straight down where it was, and you have no balance. He wants it to come behind you to throw another knee. So while Samransak has me stepping back into my stance so that I'm like clearing back out after throwing the knee, even if you don't want to clear back out, like I'm saying I want to stay in, using the exact same principle that he's teaching of bringing it back behind you, you can throw that same knee again. That's what Diesel Noi would have you do, is you want it to come back rather than right where it was. So different results, but the same method of bringing your foot back behind you. And then I'm ready to throw that right one. Like, he's like, if you just put your foot right where it was, you're like standing there like an idiot. No balance and no next move. If your feet are totally squared up, you have no next move. You basically are waiting for the opponent to hit you or not. So now he wants me to knee, switch, and kick. So basically the same thing he was telling me with the kick he wants with the knee. So whether you're kneeing or you're kicking, you're doing the same like exit plan footwork. He's saying for Muay Thai you have to be watching all the time. You're always watching the face of your opponent. And no matter what your body's doing, you can see, you can dodge, you can come in. I'm like, so you look at the face, but you can see the whole picture. And he's like, oh yeah, you watch the face, but you've got this like sight picture of the entire body. They can't lie to you. He's looking right at me, just catching everything I'm throwing at him. He's actually reading my intentions through my face, like he's reading my rhythm through my face. Reo means fast. So he doesn't want me to rush, but he wants the kind of like tempo between those strikes to be more fluid. He can feel the little air bubbles between things. So you throw your right, and as you're throwing your right, you're already stepping and you go up. See how he didn't even have to like walk forward so much? Because I didn't go back. So he throws his right and I didn't go back, so he doesn't have to take a big step. He says it depends on where the opponent goes. So he's saying if you hit them with the right cross and you stun them, they're just going to stand there, so you don't have to take a big step. But if they take a step back, then you're going to have to walk forward to reach them with your kick. So that's if they're going back. I'm asking whether I have to step outside very much, and he says, again, it depends on where your opponent goes. If you take a big step out and your opponent's gone backwards, you've lost all of your reach. He's saying if you step directly towards their foot and try to kick, if they pivot out, you're going to miss them. If you step outside their stance and then throw your kick, you're actually going to intercept them. Like as they try to pivot out, you're going to like catch up to them because you're cutting off a little bit of their distance as they're moving. So it's a little bit reading where your opponent is going based on the distance that they take, whether they step back or not. And it's also a little bit anticipating where they're going to be. It's like how you throw a football to where your teammate's going to be rather than like where they were if they're running. So all of this is just basic, punches, kicks, and knees with footwork, but he's working with me on reading distance and movement. You have to be able to throw all of those things while cutting someone off. You have to be able to throw all of those things with the correct timing for where they're going to be, where they're stepping, whether they step back or not. All of those things you just have to feel as you're moving around. It takes a lot of experience to be good. He's saying in Muay Thai you have to have everything. You have to have punches, elbows, knees, kicks, and clinch. He's saying that back in the day he would die from clinchers. He fought Panam Tuan Lek, who is like Mr. Title Knee is his nickname. He was from the Hapalong Gym, which is where Diesel Noi and Chmuk Pet are from as well. He was Fighter of the Year. Panam Tuan Lek was an incredible knee fighter. When he fought Samransak said he had to lose 8 kilos, and so he was very tired, like he didn't have knockout power in the fight. And Panamthung Lek, who's a little bit taller than Samransak, just like wet blanketed over him with his knees. This story that he's telling is about how he died fighting Panamthung Lek because he was so tired and relentless from the clinching. He asked me if I've ever fought someone bigger. I have. A lot. But I'm the clincher. I'm the one who grabs them and wears them down. So it's funny because he thinks I'm going to identify with being the smaller one being swallowed by the clinch, but actually I'm the small one that's the clinch monster that basically drowns the giant. Goes to show, everyone learns Muay Thai, but everyone has a very different method to it. So he's saying that you have to keep people off of you with punches and kicks, and if you're going to come in as a clincher, you have to set up with punches and kicks. You can't just run in and grab. He's like, if you're trying to grab someone or follow someone and they're big and they knee you, it takes all your power out. See that little hesitation before the kick? It's not an air bubble, what I was talking about before. It's not like a stopgap. Instead, it's part of his rhythm. There's a slight hesitation on it to let the person get into the position you want them to be in before that kick is going to land. What he was complaining about with me, where he's like, go a little bit faster, is that I was just stopping rather than like reading where he was going to be for that kick. He can feel the difference between those. And here he's telling me again to bring my foot back off of that kick behind me and then bring my right foot back. See how smooth? Like, even though I don't want to be losing that distance, the footwork, even if I'm not taking another step back to like get far away from him, keeping that foot behind me so I can go again is the same rhythm. So he's talking about here how it's important when you're teaching somebody to just teach them very elemental things and then let their style come out of it. He's like, it's not all just like kicking endlessly until you're exhausted or just like throw everything because there's like kicks, knees, elbows, and whatever. It's making these slight technical adjustments so that everything flows together with someone's individual like rhythm and timing and pressures. So there I was telling him that I understand too with this footwork, after the kick, if I bring my foot down straight where it was, I don't have time to teep someone off of me because I'm too close. So if I kick, I have to bring my foot behind me in order to take just enough distance to be able to teep him off if he decides to attack me. And here he's making a point about how you have to pull your weight onto your back foot before teeping. He's saying your weight has to come all the way onto the back foot. That's the way that he's taking a little bit of distance in order to time that teep. Is his weight is coming back. He's like, you know who was good at this is Samart. You ask any Thai person whose teeps they like Samart. Samart's got all the teeps. In the Muay Thai Library, Samart's session, he works with me on the teep, and he keeps his feet so close together, it's like he's at a bus stop, and then it just kind of comes out of nowhere. Samransak fought Samart twice. He lost to him twice. So here again, I'm angling my foot too far to the side. He's telling me how important it is to keep it at the right angle. It allows you to kind of like spring. If it's too far sideways, it's kind of like a dead weight. So you don't have to throw like 8 million kicks and punches in pad work. You can use a lot of the movement in pad work to train your footwork and train your rhythm and distance and like reading where your opponent is and when to throw. I used to think when I was watching people throwing very few strikes in pad work, that they were being lazy, that they were just like waiting too long to throw their kick because they were trying to save time. This is true. Some people do that to kind of like not get tired. But you can actually use that in what he's showing me here. Like everything is about using your footwork for the correct distances and seeing when that kick is the right kick based on where he's standing or where I've moved him with a previous strike. It's about awareness. So there he was telling me, throw the kick right away, you don't have to wait, because he can feel the difference between his timing and my air bubble. I'm just using an air bubble because my weight hasn't flowed, like I'm not flowing forward for that kick, and so there's a hesitation rather than the weight's coming forward and I'm timing when that kick should go. Same thing with the knee. Look at how he throws his hip into it. He floats up on his foot. This is very much like Dissolnoy and Muay Thai. If you watch both of them in the Muay Thai Library, they teach this like coming up on the ball of the foot for knees. Oh, it drives power. It's amazing. So he's saying that as you come back, like after you've thrown the knee, as you use his footwork to come back, then you're ready to throw a kick. This is interesting, this footwork that he's talking about for how to come off of the knees, because it's putting it in a nice, like, it's in the rhythm of everything else that he's doing to do these knees. This is not how a knee fighter would do it. That doesn't mean that it's incorrect, and that doesn't mean that what the knee fighter would do is more correct. It's just that he would not throw like 10 knees in a row, whereas Chumukpet, Dissolnoy, Langsuan, Yodkunpan, this like don't lean back style of knees is so that you can throw a lot of them. The same way that he throws his punches is so that you can throw more and more and more punches. It's not a single one. It's not a wrong technique either way. It's a different technique based on the overall rhythm that you're using. So for him, he's always trying to get his feet back to a position, really so that he can throw his hands, because that's what he wants to be doing. You can throw kicks and more knees off of this, but the footwork he's showing me is always to return to a neutral position where the strikes can be where he's comfortable, which is his punches and throwing a longer kick. He doesn't want to stay in this range because his punches are snuffed. He's saying to send my hip more on the knee. Hai Changwat means use your timing. So he doesn't want to like bop bop, because basically it takes the power out of both of them. If you hit someone with the first knee, they're hurt. So you don't have to rush to that second knee. You've like, and so you have this moment to like really take your time for the next one. So the like bop bop, like rabbit knee thing, there's no reason for it. Like you don't have to get the second one in order to compromise the power of both of them. He's saying keep the rhythm steady, because if you hit them with the first one, you have time for the second one. They're already hurt. See how he just makes everything really like, it's not quite symmetrical, but everything is like the same even tempo. Like he never breaks pace, really. So I'm saying you don't have to rush with these knees, because if you get it in, you have time for whatever the next thing is. He's making fun of the rabbit knee. That's unnecessary. You've basically made two bad knees out of what could have been one good one. See how he takes the rhythm of his punching and puts it into the knees. He's staying on his beat, is why he's using these techniques, is because it keeps him on his rhythm, on his beat. It's really beautiful. So he's showing me how this right elbow can basically be in the same timing and rhythm as a right cross. I just have to change my distance in order for it to be the right strike. Look at him roll with it.
ยาวก่อนยาวก่อน
He's saying be long first.
ไม่ต้องกระโดดมาไม่เอาไหม
He's saying don't jump. I'm trying to cover the distance because I'm actually staying at the distance that a right cross would be appropriate, but he wants me to throw the elbow, so I'm not closing the distance enough. So I was jumping across the distance, and he's saying don't jump. Use your weight transfer flowing forward so that the elbow is the correct distance.
เหมือนเราเย็บเลยฝ่ายขวาอย่างเงี้ยแต่อันนี้ใช้ศอกเราเย็บมือสอง
He's saying it's the exact same rhythm as the jab and cross, but you just have to cover the distance for the elbow to be the strike. So it's basically you're surprising them with a much closer weapon. But he's saying relax. Relax.
ยาวไว้เอาฟันมา
So he's actually having me throw the jab cross so that that's what's expected, and then collapsing with the elbow as like a surprise. So you can see how he's like, you're not tired? He's waiting for me to get tired. I'm like, I'm Muay Thai. This is not tiring. But you can see how what he's trying to get me to do, he's just having me throw all the different weapons. Like, he's not trying to create patterns or like combinations. He's letting me throw everything because it's Muay Thai. But really what he's trying to pull out of me right here is rhythm between things. If you watch his feet and you watch his rhythm, he has movement between everything. I have stillness between things, and he's trying to like pop those little air bubbles. He's trying to like pull that out so that even if I'm not doing anything between strikes, like you don't have to do something, there's rhythm, there's like meaning between them, or like a coherence between them. That's why he wants me tucked. He's saying that I have to turn my hip a little bit more. The reason my hip isn't turning actually is because I'm leaning back. So he's saying really twist your shoulder around, like kind of tuck behind your shoulder, and that'll cause my hip to turn over. Again, he's trying to get the like movement between things. Use your pad work to figure out your rhythm. So I'm asking gum nit noi, like you want to kind of hunch a little bit. He's making fun of my like chest up kick. So he's focusing on my hip turning and my chest not floating. It was actually when I focused on my shoulder on the same side as the kick, staying kind of like tight a little bit, not tense, but like a little bit controlled, that corrected my kick. So the things that he's telling me to focus on didn't actually make the corrections, but the one thing that I focused on made those other two corrections because it just aligned everything else. So someone may point out what they want from you, like they want your hip to turn. That doesn't necessarily mean think turn your hip. It means figure out where on your body to delegate where that tension should go in order to accomplish that thing. And it might take you a while to figure out where that is. So he's saying here it's important to keep your weight balanced between your feet. Like you don't want to be all front foot or all back foot. You want to move. He's saying if you have lak means like foundation, like if you have a good foundation in terms of like you're solid on your base, you don't have to be afraid of anybody. He's saying even if you fight someone big, if you have a good base, like you're balanced, not like that. Don't be like Gumby. Oh, I like him kind of like bowling through me, like just shoving past me. So he's showing me how when you have a good base, you can cut someone off if you don't have a solid base, like if you're not sure of your feet, you can't cut anyone off because you're like chasing them. So his awareness in this like kind of strong foundation allows him to cut people off in the ring as well. So here he's having me kind of like track him, cut him off, and time where those kicks should go. So as he's going to the right, he wants me to cut him off with that right kick. Like, you're not going over there. I'm basically corralling him with footwork and with the timing of my strikes as he's trying to move. That was him looking like he was going to cut me off and then just throwing the right. Did not see it. I'm winding it back so he knows exactly when I'm going to punch. Part of that is, if you see again, my foot is pointed completely to the side, so I have to like come from really far away. But he's showing how as you're coming forward, that right cross can come out of nowhere. And because his is so long, the invisibility of it, it's like a shocker of a right cross. It's one of the more powerful strikes of any strike, and it's invisible because of the way that he puts it into his rhythm and movement. So he's saying look at their face and then punch them in the body, or look at their body and then punch them in the face. He's saying if people are running to catch you, like someone's coming to try to clinch you, if you don't have these like surprise, stunning punches as defenses, all you can do is run backwards. So he's saying like you stand your ground and have really solid strikes as someone's trying to close in on you in order to keep them off of you for the clinch. Punchers generally don't love clinching because they can't use their punches. So they have really good clinch defense. Again, my foot is going totally to the side, so I'm like losing some of my reach on that elbow. I could actually be coming through his pad if I would just correct that back foot a little bit. I can see it now, but I couldn't feel it at the time. He's saying that in his entire career, he's only ever gotten 5 stitches. So even as a puncher, where people are going to be close enough range to be throwing elbows at him, he's only ever gotten 5 stitches. One time he got 3, and one time he got 2 in the same spot. I asked him who he fought, and he's like, everybody. And I'm like, no, who cut you? So he couldn't remember, or I didn't understand who the second person was, but the first person who cut him was Duuglas-Ittu. Duuglas-Ittu was good fighter. When I told him I had more than 200, that's why he did his like staggering, like, oh my god. He was saying that someone got cut in training. People who have not received a lot of stitches in their fights are very, very proud of it. When they see all my scars, they can't help but say that they've, only been cut once, or like Berkler has never been cut. It actually goes to show that people do get cut. If you're really proud of having very, very few stitches, it means other people have. This is cool. He's telling me that at his gym, a burn, at a normal gym, a burn is like 50 kicks where you just like repeat like bop, 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 and it's to like build your power and your speed. He's like, at our gym, 2 is a burn. It's like 2 is enough because they were not big on kicking. They were more punch, punch, and then you can get one in. After I went to see him, I actually was training with Yodkun Pan back at my own gym, Petrangrung in Pattaya, and he had gone to America with a couple of Muangsurin fighters, and he said that he had trained at Muangsurin gym for like 10 days while he was waiting for his visa, and he said the same thing. He said they had told him to go burn on the bag, and he started kicking it like 50 times, and they were like, no, just do. Just do a repeat kick. Trying to remember to like keep my chin forward, like keep my posture right. I actually really love when I get to train with these guys who haven't trained someone in a long time, because it means that they don't have a set thing that they do anymore. And so it just kind of has this organic way of forming itself between the two of us, like what they see in me, what they remember, what they feel being in front of someone. He has an incredible amount of experience both as a fighter and as a trainer. And seeing him kind of like pull all of that together in what he was showing me here is really beautiful to me. One of the more incredible things ever is that he came with his 2 belts. Like he showed up with his 2 Lumpini belts in this little pouch so that he could show us. I know a lot of legends. I know a lot of champions. A lot of them don't have their belts, like at all. These belts on the wall right here, these are Chai Sasakun and his fighters. He has a lot of boxer champions at his gym. And so these are all up on the wall. So I've seen those, but like Dieselnoy doesn't have his belts. Karahat doesn't have his belts. Muangsurin definitely doesn't have his. Yodkumpan doesn't have them. Look at
แช
this.
มเปี้ยนมวยไทยรุ่นเฟเธอร์เวทชิง 29 เมษายน 2531 ต่อยชิงกับชาญ
So
ชัย
he's reading it for me. It's a featherweight belt at Lumpini,
Chan Chai.
and he beat Chan Chai
That
for
was
this
a
belt.
very-
Chan
that
Chai
was-
is in the Muay Thai
How many
Library.
time he
He's
fight
the
Chan Chai?
incredible teeper.
3.
They fought 3 times together.
ครั้งหนึ่งคะแนน2
Samransak won the first fight by knockout, although he says that Chan Chai was very young at the time.
อ้วนตามอ้วน
And then he beat him on points 2 times, one of which was to take Chan Chai's belt.
ตอนครั้งแรกแกยังเด็กๆอยู่ยกแรกยกหนึ่ง
So he's saying the first time I fought him, he was still just a kid. I knocked him out in round 1, Chan Chai.
ครั้งที่สาม
Second time, won on points. Third time, won on points and got the belt.
They were kids.
Oh.
He knocked him out in round 1 with a punch. Second time he won on points, and the third time he won the belt.
You beat him 3 times?
Yeah.
Boy.
Oh, boy.
แก่แล้ว
Oh.
He's saying that he's old.
And which one's that one?
He's very sweet. He's very handsome and kind. Like, look at how gentle he is, but he's got this like dignity about him.
Oh, this is from 25-29.
So he won
Junior
this belt.
featherweight.
It's also a Lumpini belt off of Samransak,
Oh, yeah.
who he said was one of the best punchers of all time.
I want to take a picture.
Oh, I love that he
No,
had
I
both
have
of
to
them.
switch camera.
You need to act.
Yeah,
We had to
yeah.
find a beautiful place to take these. Kevin took some beautiful photos with that. That is Samransak Muangsurin. Go look him up. His fights are amazing.